Hey guys, welcome back to Nerdy Crew. So today we'll be doing a better approach on this single number problem. I hope that you have watched the part 1 of this video because there I have explained this problem statement. So now let's start with it. Here I'll again be taking this example and then we'll understand what to do. So I've taken this example. So if you remember that in the brute force approach, we were basically using a linear search and then we were iterating throughout this array. And while iterating, we were counting the total number of occurrences of a particular number. And once we found that a number was occurring once, we returned that number, right? Now, a better approach could be using a hash map, right? Why? Because we know that in a hash map, we have a key and its corresponding value. So in this case, you can have a key as the number and its corresponding value could be the number of occurrences, right? Let me explain you with an example. Like, for example, here key could be 4 and its value could be 1 because this number is occurring once. Similarly, for 1 we can write that its number of occurrences is 2. And when it comes to the number 2, it is also occurring twice. Right? So I hope that you have understood this whole thing. So now, the next step could be iterating in this hash array and finding a particular number which is occurring once. Once we find that, our job is done. So in this case, we'll be returning 4, right? So now let's start the implementation part. Now, since I've told you that we can use a hash map, but you know that if I'm using a hash map, I might also use a hash array. But there is a problem which comes while using a hash array. Here we are provided that this array will contain integers, not just positive integers but also negative integers. And when we have negative integers, usually using a hash array could be a problem. That's why it's better to use a hash map and not a hash array. So now let's start implementing this approach. So now let's start by declaring a hash map. And once the hash map has been declared, the second task is to iterate throughout this entire array. For that, I can use a for loop. Int I is equal to 0, I is less than nums dot length I plus plus. So now let's insert these key value pairs in our hash map. For that, I can use a put method. So mpp.put, and then it takes two parameters. The first one is our key, which is nums of I, and the second parameter is going to be its corresponding value, so which I am saying is val. Now since I have not declared the val here, so it's going to be a problem, right? So let's declare val here. Now for the value, I'm going to use a method here. First I'll write the method, then I'll explain how it's working. So I can say get or default and nums of I, and it is initialized to 0. So now let's understand what these two methods are doing with the help of this example. So first we'll start with get or default method. This method is returning you the corresponding value of your key. So for instance, if this is my array, so my first element is 4. First element is 4, and now its corresponding value is initialized to 0. So it is 0. Now using this method, we are inserting the key value pairs in our hash map. So this is our key and this is the value. Now this value is going to be updated in every iteration if we encounter that particular element. Let's understand it here. Now this is our current element and its value is initialized to 0. Now I have to insert this element in our array. So while inserting, this value is going to be updated and now it is going to be 1. Understood? Now this is our second element. So let's say 1. And now its corresponding value is initialized to 0. Now we know that when we have to insert these key value pairs in our hash map, this value is updated. So now this value will be 1. Now this is our second element, which is 2. Now it's the same thing. When these key value pairs have to be inserted in the hash map, this value gets updated. Then this is our next element, which is 1. So now we know that this key is already existing in our hash map, but the value should be updated, right? So this value is going to be 2. And then we'll move on to the last element, which is 2, and then its value will be updated because key is already existing in our hash map. This is how this entire process is working. I hope you've understood. Now, the only part which is left is that now we have to iterate throughout this entire hash map and find out which element is occurring once and then return that element. So now let's do that. So now let's start by iterating in the hash map by using a for each loop. Now I can use the entry set method in order to retrieve the key value pairs. And here I can say mpp.entryset because this is the name of our hash map. Now I have to store the retrieved key value pair somewhere. So for that I can use the variable it, right? Now this variable will be of the data type map dot entry integer comma integer, right? This is for the key and this is for the value. Both the key and the value are going to be of the type integer. Now after we have done this, I can have a condition if. So I'll say if it dot get value is equal to 1. Now this means if I get the corresponding value of the key as 1, I can simply say that return it dot get key. Now I have to get the key. Fine. There's an extra parentheses. Okay. This should work. Now I need to add a return statement also. So here I can say return -1. Now let's try to run it. Yeah, so it is accepted. Now we can try to submit it as well. It is submitted, right? So now let's understand what is going to be the space and time complexity of this one. To insert the elements of the array in the hash map, we are taking big O of n time complexity, and then in order to retrieve that single element, we will be taking big O of n by 2 plus 1 time complexity. Why? Because at max you will have n by 2 elements, considering that every element is occurring twice, and then there is going to be one element which will be appearing once. So that's why this is going to be the time complexity. Alright, so this is the time complexity. Therefore, the total time complexity is going to be big O of n plus big O of n by 2 plus 1. In this case, the space complexity is going to be big O of n by 2 plus 1 only, because the total number of elements in the hash map are going to be n by 2 plus 1. So I hope this has solved all your problems regarding these questions. If you liked the video, please make sure that you like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.